The big question remains, is justice evading the Epstein survivors? Let's try and get in a perspective straight from the horse's mouth. I'm in fact joined in by one of the Epstein survivors, Reena O, on World 360. Thank you for Reena for joining in. We stand in solidarity with you. It's unfortunate that time and again you have to revisit that trauma, but it's important you put your experience out there. So can you share what exactly transpired with you and Jeffrey Epstein?
In regards to Jeffrey Epstein and how I met him, so I was a college-age student when I met Jeffrey, and I'm an artist, and I was looking for someone just to help me with my career at the time. And a friend of mine, Lisa Phillips, had met him previously on his island when she went on a modeling shoot, and she mentioned Jeffrey very briefly, and you know, he sounded all great. He sounded like he was a legitimate art collector. This guy, you know, lives on the Upper East Side, near the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I knew that zip code equals, like, that's where all the art collectors live in New York City, and he had a private island and a private jet. So I agreed to meet with him, and I went to his house for the first time with my portfolio, and he genuinely seemed interested in my artwork. I didn't realize for a very long time that what he was doing to me was sexual abuse, more so until like recently, and I would say 2019, 2020, when I met with lawyers who reached out to me and they said, you know, what he did to you was sexual abuse. And I didn't even register it as sexual abuse for a very long time, because this is a memory that I just didn't want to remember. I compartmentalized what he did to me. And, but so it went on for about 2 years. I kept going back.
2 years. Reena, what exactly happened, and why wouldn't it register with you that what was happening with you was amounting to sexual abuse?
Well, I was abused as a child when I was really small, and I always blamed myself. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. My abuser told me it was my fault. You know, and it happened more than once. It happened on a repeated basis. So having had that early childhood experience, I didn't realize that this too was sexual abuse, and I kind of blamed myself for a very long time for going back. And it's just something that I didn't even share with my family. I didn't even tell my husband until he was arrested. And he did know that I had a relationship with a billionaire art collector, and it wasn't a good one. But I never told him his name, and I didn't reveal the details. And he asked me one day, is that billionaire's name Jeffrey Epstein? And I was like, where'd you hear that? And he's like, I saw that he got arrested. He's in the news. Is that the same guy? And I was like, yeah, that's the same guy. And he's like, you know, like, you never told me it was this guy. And I was like, well, you know, it's not something that I would bring up in light conversation. And I was terrified to ever talk about Jeffrey because of how connected he was.
It's understandable how terrified you must have been given his connections. That's why, coming to Epstein's connections, how do you view Trump's turnaround to support the Epstein Files Transparency Act? Do you think it's a genuine support from the US president?
Well, I think, you know, he has to support the Epstein Files Transparency Act at this point, because the majority of the public and our government are supporting it. And you know, the president doesn't like being on the losing team. You know, he likes to win, and there's an immense amount of pressure. And, you know, we did ask him nicely. In the beginning, you know, people were yelling at him and criticizing him. I'm the type of person that's a little bit more diplomatic, and I wanted him to release the files and, you know, help the victims and help us get closure first and foremost. And there probably are some compromising information in these files. But we would like to know what happened to us. We want to know who else was involved and what exactly did Jeffrey Epstein do to us and what was he really doing? Because I still don't know. I just know he was very connected. He was very powerful. Things were happening to me, and then things happened to a lot of other girls. But, you know, we don't know because we also didn't get closure when he died. You know, we never got to face him in court. We never saw the punishment.
True. Whether it's Democrats or the Republicans, do you think both ends of the political spectrum have not done much and can't be trusted at the moment?
Well, I'm an apolitical person. I don't think this should be a politicized issue. This is a human rights issue. I don't think predators prey on their victims based on what political party they belong to. And predators, you know, as far as I'm concerned, usually don't side with the political side and then decide, hey, I'm going to prey on these victims because that person may be a Democrat or Republican. So this should really not be a politicized issue at all. And it's very upsetting to see members of our government fighting for the release of these files and blaming each other, you know, saying, no, like it's your side,
but
your
Rita,
party.
Don't you think that because the current US president's name and the former US president Bill Clinton's name associated with this scandal, don't you think that that is because of the power dynamics with the Epstein case that is associated and the files have highlighted? Do you think the Epstein files themselves are now a turning point which is also demanding greater accountability, especially when it comes to, in fact, from men in power?
I do see it as a turning point, and I also see it as a turning point in finally, like there's going to be some sort of balance, because all this time, you know, most of the victims, we're not powerful, we don't come from money. Jeffrey Epstein certainly had the opposite, and that's what he used in order to control and abuse all of his victims. And these names that are going to come out are his powerful friends. Yes, the president is a Republican, and there are other, you know, former presidents that are Democrats, but, you know, like they're both in the files. You know, Donald Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein. We all know this is public information. And President Bill Clinton also knew Jeffrey Epstein. You know, he's in the flight logs. They can't deny that they didn't have a relationship of some sort with Jeffrey Epstein. But we also just want to see what else went on behind closed doors. For me, from my own personal experience, I was not trafficked to, you know, rich and powerful men, but I've spoken to other survivors who claim they have, like they allege things did happen.
All right. May justice be served, and may you find the courage to find closure. Thank you, Reena, for joining in on World 360.